Well, I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today I'm gonna do part 34 of my ranking and reviewing the Grateful Dead's Dave's Picks, an archival concert release series that they release about 4 a year, and we are currently on number 34. I'm gonna review this release, which is a complete show, plus there is a bonus disc of material from the show prior to this complete show. And then I'm going to show you where this show, in my opinion, falls among the other 33 that I've already ranked. So this is a 4-release set, 3 CDs plus a bonus disc. The 3 CDs are a complete show from June 23rd, 1974. The bonus disc, which just makes ranking these so much harder because I don't know whether or not I should include the bonus disc or not, because the bonus disc is absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to include it in the ranking because it might help it jump a little bit. And I want to help it jump a little bit because these are 74 shows and I love me some 74. It is the musical comfort food of my musical comfort food. The Dead being my comfort food, 74 being the comfort food within that comfort food, like an egg inside the nest of comfort food. And the bonus disc is from the June 22nd show previously, which was my birthday show. I wanted to go to the show really badly. I asked my mom if I could go. I was like, Mom, I want to go see the Dead. They're playing in Miami. I know we live in California. I can take a bus or something. But she's like, no, man, you're only 4. That's ridiculous. I don't even want you leaving the house, letting you go into a Dead show. So I didn't get to see the show, which sucks because it's a great show. So yeah, I love this show. And most recently, when I was listening to it, it's a show I have on tape, though I can't say I listen to the whole thing. I usually listen to the second set because the second set is spectacular. And the Dead apparently also think the second set is spectacular because there is a 3-song sequence of music on this show that they released, not the complete. They sort of cut off the beginning of the first song, but they released on So Many Roads, their 5-disc box set, which came out in '99, which I haven't reviewed yet, but once I finish this Dave thing, I think that's the first one I'm going to tackle. I have thoughts on that. Of course I do. But yeah, so they released this 3-song run on So Many Roads. And my view of this show is 2 things. As I was most recently revisiting it, I was like, man, this feels like a Sunday show, right? Like if you've seen the Dead enough times, I saw them a lot on the West Coast. And we're talking about the Dead proper with Jerry, not like any of the offshoot bands or the follow-up bands. And generally on the West Coast, they would play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like Shoreline, they'd play LA shows, like the Forum, Oakland Coliseum, whatever. There were usually 3 show runs, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes they would do bigger stadium runs on the West Coast, like in Vegas or up in Eugene, Oregon. And those would generally be 2 shows, Saturday, Sundays. And Sunday shows have a special vibe about them. They're a little more laid back and chill and maybe not as like tight, maybe a little bit looser. The energy is maybe a little bit more looser. They're in no way bad, but there is a Sunday vibe to them that, like, if you've been to enough Dead shows, you just know that vibe. And as I was listening to this and I got to the end of the first set, I was like, man, this just feels like a Sunday show. This had to have been a Sunday show. So I Googled it, and sure enough, it was a Sunday show. And that's not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form, but there is a certain sort of like, yeah, it's Sunday mentality to a lot of the playing. That's my first thought about the show. My second part about the show is it kind of felt like amusement parks. Like I love amusement parks, right? And there's I've been to a whole bunch of amusement parks around the country, and some of them are crazy crowded, and it's like electric, and you're running around doing all these crazy things. And there was a particular one in Southern California that we used to go to a lot that was pretty laid back and pretty chill. And it just felt like, kind of like had a family vibe, right? Just kind of like, it was never all that crowded. You kind of could take it easy. Had a lot of fun. They had a log ride. They had roller coasters. They had everything you wanted, but there was a certain chill vibe about it. But they had one attraction. They had one roller coaster that was just like the bomb of all roller coasters. And like anytime we went to amusement parks, I was like, I hope they have something equivalent to this roller coaster. And I feel that's the way this show is. Like it's got everything you want. you know, and it's all kind of chill, but it has that one thing right in the heart of the second set that just makes it like, man, I got to go to that roller coaster. I got to go to that show. I got to go to that amusement park because of this single attraction. And I kind of feel that way about this show. The bonus disc, incredible. Which makes me wonder, like, I think maybe, I don't know how good, haven't re-listened to the 622 show, but I'm wondering, since they had released a good portion of this, at least like, I think the portion they released was about 18 minutes long is what they released. In this version, the full version, it's over 30 minutes. It's right about 30 minutes. And I was wondering if maybe they could have released the entirety of the 622 show, because what we have here from 622 is ridiculous. And then maybe just 70 minutes from 623 is the bonus disc, and not repeated the 3 songs. But then since the 3 songs aren't complete and we're missing about 12 minutes of the first song, I'm like, okay, I'm okay with it. But anyways, just thoughts. So what do we get? The first set is on disc 1 and spills over into disc 2. First set, excellent track list. A bunch of great songs. I can't say that any of them are the must-hear versions of that song. There is one song in the first set. This is the only performance of that song ever. A cover of Chuck Berry's Let It Rock lands almost smack dab in the middle of the first set. It's neat. It's neat to have it in the set. It mixes things up. But it's one of those versions that doesn't make you say, oh, now I know why they only played it once. But it's also one of those versions that doesn't go, gosh, I wish they had played that more than once. So it's just like, oh, cool, they played Let It Rock once. And it's enjoyable. But I can't say it's like, man, that was fire. I wish they had played it more often. Though I wish they had played it more often so it could have become fire. But at this point, I think it's just a really enjoyable, neat song selection. So the first disc, you open with a Ramble on Rose. It's a crazy. I thought that's a song crazy to open up a second set. Feels really crazy to open up a show. Just feels like, oh, Sunday. We're just going to start in the middle of a normal first set and just play this. It's a weird opener. Black-Throated Wind. We're keeping some really chill energy early. A Mississippi half step. We're definitely not jamming out Mississippi yet. Always love to hear that song. But it's, it's a pretty concise version of that. Beat It On Down the Line. I think there's 5. Bum, 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 bum. And This Job, I think there's 5 in the intro. Chill Road Jimmy, nice chill, kind of high energy Jack Straw. We get the Let It Rock. Fantastic Cumberland Blues. You can never go wrong with the Cumberland Blues. And El Paso. And then we end the first disc with a To Lay Me Down. So the vibes are chill. I mean, it all sounds good. They're playing well. But it's a chill vibe. That's the end of disc 1. Disc 2, we get the remainder of the first set. And here is where something really, really interesting comes in. Set list wise, though the performances are not like the greatest performances of these songs, but they're solid performances. And the coupling of these 2 songs to close of all things the first set is a really interesting coupling. So you get a weather report suite, part 1, part 2, Let It Grow. Both parts are played well. The jam in Let It Grow is not particularly out there or crazy, but as they continue on the jam at the end of the vocals, once we finish the vocals and we get like our like energetic jam, it starts to like, ease down and kind of chill out, and we start to like mellow out, and then we eventually slide right into a set closing. To close the first set, a set closing China Doll, which is just absolutely fantastic. Amazing choice. And when we get to the bonus disc, I think this is possibly why China Doll gets dropped here. Because I didn't look this up, and I probably should have, but I don't know of any other instance where China Doll closed a set, especially a first set. But on the bonus disc, there's an Eyes of the World, and Eyes, China Doll was a kind of a common pairing in like this era. And at the end of the Eyes of the World jam, we get a pretty nice little peak, and then everything kind of chills out as we're going to slide into the next song. There is hardcore China Doll energy in that slow down, that like sort of delicate, spacey, but like beautiful jam that happens before the next song. And you can feel like, oh, it's China Doll. But they don't go into China Doll. Jerry's like, oh, no, Wharf Rat. And he starts playing the Wharf Rat chords. So it almost feels like the China Doll was still in the air the next night, and the first opportunity they had, which naturally, I think, considering what was played in the first set, is this Weather Report suite at the end of the first set. They dropped the China Doll there, and it's just perfect. It's an awesome treat. Really, 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 really nice. The second set continues on disc 2. After that, that takes up about just over like 21, 22 minutes. We get a nice 10-minute version of Sea Stones, Phil Lesh, Ned Lagan doing pretty much electronic ambient noise, Phil making noises with his bass, Ned doing a bunch of electronics. Pretty sure Ned stuck around for several songs in the second set and kind of added some like background layers to it. Not really inserting himself in a very dramatic fashion, but there are some nice textures that he introduces and things like that. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, so then that's a cold, hard, like standalone Sea Stones. And then when they start the second set, they kind of just delicately like jam a little bit, and it's kind of pretty, and it's very Sunday-ish. You know, it's maybe the sun was going down and they came out and they were just like, yeah, let's play while the sun goes down. And that kind of eases into a Ship of the Fools. And the way it sets up the Ship of Fools, I've always thought of Ship of Fools as kind of a rigid little song. Like Jerry could put some emotion into it, invest a little more like energy in it. And it's a song that over the years, the lyrics especially have just meant more to me. Didn't really get me when I was younger. I didn't really get it when I was younger. Didn't impact me in the same way. But I really like the way this jam kind of sets it up and kind of just, I don't know, lets Ship of Fools breathe a little more and just, I think, makes this version a little more just like, I don't know, gives it a little more like sea space to like float around on. I like it. I like the jam in the Ship of Fools. Then we get a Big River, and then we get a Black Peter. Like, that's how we're starting off this second set. Sea Stones, Sunday Jam, Ship of Fools, Big River, Black Peter. We're in hardcore Sunday energy here. Then we go on to disc 3. And right now, they're going to drop an around and around. Bob's like, we need an around and around. We need to put some energy in this. It's a weird insertion of a song. It's just doesn't fit the energy. At this point in time, around and around was popping up in weird places. It wasn't like an end of the set number. So it is kind of, it just, as someone who, my experience with around and around, you know, for dozens and dozens of shows was like towards the end of the second set. So it just kind of doesn't seem to work. It's almost like, going back to this amusement park analogy, if like there was a bunch of kiddie rides at the amusement park, but they were all like on separate parts of the park, and like one was next to a roller coaster, one was next to a water ride, and you had to go all these weird places to do the kiddie rides, and your kids are exhausted. There's a number of songs in here that just pop up, and you're like, why is that song here? Like, why is Black Peter dropped early in the second set? Why does Around and Around follow it? It's just, there's a lot of weirdness in this show. But then we get 30 minutes of absolute heaven. We get a Dark Star jam. We get a Spanish jam. We get a US blues. And these are just absolutely magnificent. You get 17 minutes, and it's called Dark Star Jam, but I have a problem with that because it's not a Dark Star jam. It's a Dark Star without any lyrics, because it's a full-on they start off Dark Star. Like, it's not like we're jamming out of Around and Around into Dark Star and you can hear those flavors. No, they play Dark Star. They start the song. They just don't go ever into any lyrics. After they jam on this for 17 minutes and they explore Dark Star as they do in 74, and it's beautiful and it's tantalizing and it's spacey and it's exploratory and it's incredibly wonderful, they go into a ridiculously sort of intensely kind of attacking, but kind of like everybody's attacking Spanish jam. Like Bill's hard on the Spanish jam, and Bob's hard on the Spanish jam, and Jerry's hard on the Spanish jam. And it's not really like they're attacking in unison, but they're all really, really into the Spanish jam. And so the energy is just like coming from all fronts, and it just really, really works. And they kind of ride that energy, and they kind of eventually abandon the Spanish jam and just kind of keep jamming away. And it's a really positive energy. It just really feels good, and they're just going at it. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute. They're heading into US blues. And we get what has to be the longest version of US blues ever at like close to 9 minutes, because it just has this really nice, tasty, exploratory, let's build this energy. And if there is a timeline, if that could change, I have a list of things I wish I could change about the Dead. Making US Blues a segue song, a song that you would always jam into, could possibly be one of the greatest things they could have done. You know, instead of just a standalone encore number, if it had just become sort of a always played mid-set. It didn't have a beginning, didn't even have an ending. It just jammed in and out of things. Oh, that would have been so fantastic. Then we get in Uncle John's Band that feels kind of tepid at first, but then once they reach like the jam part and towards like the second third, the latter 2/3 of the song, yeah, gears start to click, works really well. We get a One More Saturday Night, and then we close with a Casey Jones, which also is a very Sunday Casey Jones, kind of a bow, 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 bum, bow, bum, bum, bow, that kind of maintains a pretty Sunday going through the countryside energy until we get to that closing jam, which never really reaches those out of control locomotive, like coming at you fast vibes that like the earlier 70s versions would sometimes get. But I think it redeems itself and it maintains a really good Sunday intensity. So an incredibly enjoyable show. Like, other than, I think, the utterly confusing Around and Around, which I have a hard time with most times, and just the somewhat out of place Black Peter, though it works because it's Black Peter, it's a really good, chill, highly enjoyable show with one absolutely amazing sequence of music, the Dark Star, which is a Dark Star, it's just an instrumental Dark Star, into Spanish Jam, which might... not my favorite Spanish jam, but it's up there with like the best of the Spanish jams. Into the US Blues. Phenomenal sequence of music. And it's neat that we get the electronic Sea Stones. I like that. The jam into Ship of Fools is really, really special. The Weather Report suite into China Doll. Disc 2 and Disc 3, I think, are pretty special. And Disc 1 is just highly, highly enjoyable. And you get that Let It Rock thrown in the middle of it. Just a fantastic, fantastic show. Bonus disc. Material from June 22nd, the previous show, 1974. And again, it's not a complete show. It's material from first and second set, though it's sequenced. So like it appears in the order it would have appeared in the show. We're just cutting out songs between it. Opens up with a nearly 30-minute playing in the band. That is one of the most enjoyable playing in the bands ever. It is just kind of upbeat, kind of lively, very exploratory. It's just... immediately, as soon as they get into the like jam section, Jerry's immediately off and like space thing, not like aggressively, but just like, hey, I'm ready to play, I'm ready to explore. And as soon as they hit that sort of like open space where he can explore, Jerry is off and running, and everybody's off and running, and it just maintains this very, very exploratory, kind of consistent, upbeat, positive, playing in the band energy for almost the entire time. And it kind of escalates towards the middle and things maybe get a little bit more, we have our ups and downs, and of course the landscape's not straight, but we're never peaking too high and getting too frenzy. We're never going into deep space. And there's one point when it feels like they've reached sort of the natural peak of the jam, maybe close to 20 minutes into it, maybe a little earlier than that, maybe about 17 or 18. And you can feel that sort of like, this is the point where maybe a couple years earlier, or maybe if it was a Dark Star a couple years earlier, the song would have fallen apart. And we would have gone into that deep, deep space territory with noises and kind of like what we get in like 80s space. We would fall into that territory. Bill would either be gone or would just be making weird noises. But you can feel them fighting the sort of the gravitational pull of falling apart. The energy is there. You feel like space should be coming, but Jerry's fighting it, and like Phil's fighting it. Like everybody's really going hard to like not fall apart. Bill keeps things going, and it's almost like I'm imagining like a movie where like some airplane is trying to not crash in the ocean and they're barely staying above the waves. And every so often they hit the waves, but after like what seems like an impossibly long amount of time for them to survive, they eventually get air again and take off. That's what this playing is. It's like they never succumb to the gravitational pull of going into deep space. And there's like about 4 to 5 minutes of them just fighting that and like resisting that. And it just... I don't know, it's really neat and it's really enjoyable. And you feel that they have succeeded when all of a sudden, Jerry, you can start feeling the playing in the band riff come back in, the the one that they play before they go back into the dun to the reprise full on. Those little like melodic lines that they play. And once Jerry starts teasing those, you're like, oh, they made it, man. They made it. They're not going into deep space. And as much as I enjoy deep space, like the fact that they never succumb to it in this jam feels like they won out on something. It feels like an accomplishment. An absolutely thrilling, fun, well-played 30-minute playing in the band. That is fantastic. Then we get a China Rider. Awesome China. China's got the Feeling Groovy jam, and there's probably the China jam. I mean, this is like a 10-minute China Rider. The jam is just peaks and then peaks and then peaks. I mean, they just keep hitting all of these peaks and like the natural sort of China written part and then going into the pre-Feeling Groovy and then going into Feeling Groovy. It's just like peak after peak after peak, and everybody's going hard. They go into an I Know You Rider. Beautiful I Know You Rider. We get a couple songs cut. Then we get a really strong Eyes of the World with that really nice China Doll sort of tease in it, into a Wharf Rat, and then a Sugar Mag to close. Excellent, excellent bonus disc. But yeah, I really, really like this show. 74 is my comfort food. Where would I put it in context of all the other Dave's picks? I would put it right, I have it right there at number 11. Just out of the top 10 by a monstrous like 30-minute the other one in that 72 show that falls in number 10. So just kept out. And again, it's got one absolutely, I think, almost must-hear moment, and that is a Dark Star Spanish Jam U.S. Blues. Absolutely special. It's got some really, really nice treats, like the Weather Report Suite in a China Doll. I don't know how many of those are must-hear performances, but to me, there's something about this band, the sound of this band, like even when they're just great and not like upper level great, when they're like A+ tier and maybe not S tier, like the 74 band, the 73 era, just the way they sound. Bill being the only drummer, I think adds a lot to it for me. The song selection, because I love all the songs. There's nothing seeping in that I'm like, absolutely phenomenal. Anytime I rank a 74 show, there's going to be bias. I know I'm biased for 74. Something about 74 with almost any band that was playing live there is my favorite. I don't know what was going on, what was in the water that year, that I was open to everything that was happening. But again, I would put it at number 11. And this is on a list of shows that only once we get to the very, very back of this list, maybe only those last four, am I thinking, those are things I'm probably not going to reach out for that often, those last four on this list. Everything else goes from great to just a must-get dead stuff. And number 11, we're ranking up there at some of the really, really, really good stuff, as far as I'm concerned. Mixed messaging there, I know, but still. Number 11. Anyways, those are my thoughts on this 74 show. Really excited for the next release because we are once again expanding further and further closer to the present day. Our most recent release, as far as When the Dead played, is coming in number 35. And I'm really excited to revisit that one again, to get back into like the 80s. So anyways, that's all I got. Leave your comments, subscribe, like, and go listen to the show, people. It is fantastic. It is fantastic. It is fantastic. Peace. Talk to you later.